Hampshire elected and consecrated Bishop Gene Robinson, who was a partnered openly gay man. The only reason they're making a big fuss about it is they have to see him at various meetings. The response to that was a whole lot of churches in Africa saying that we should be removed from the communion. A push for the Archbishop of Canterbury to have more power over the communion, which is completely contrary to the split from the Roman Catholic Church. Yeah.
If they're worried that they have to see, wouldn't the correct response be just to have to wear a burqa?
Yeah.
Moving on.
Just a paleo burqa would be amazing.
So does that mean that other churches in the Anglican communion don't allow gay priests?
Yes.
Most or some?
Most.
Okay.
I think the ones that do are on their way are us, New Zealand, Canada, and England.
So why would the Archbishop of Canterbury help?
It's unclear. They really want them to, they really just want them to say, look, I have a lot of authority. You guys are gone. We're kicking you out. Yes.
So you listed the countries that have openly gay priests or on their way to having openly gay priests, and you notice that these are all Western countries with predominantly white populations. Does it occur to you that this is simply Western imperialism that you're trying to force upon the rest of the Anglican community? I'm kidding.
Have you been talking to Archbishop Akinola?
Who is this guy?
The Archbishop of Nigeria.
No. I think he probably killed me as soon as
Wasn't that whole thing he just sent an email that said, give us 1,000 souls now and it'll give you 1,000,000 souls back, and a lot of people come.
Alright.
Back to the talk. No, that's actually an argument that's been made by a lot of the African churches.
So I'm not crazy. It hasn't really.
Well, yeah, but when it comes down to it, we're not saying that they have to do it.
No, I know it.
Yeah. We're just saying, we're going to do it. You can do what you want. There are also a lot of churches that, don't ordain women. And yeah, they didn't have a huge problem with us doing it until Bishop Jeffrey Story became presiding bishop, and they had to really see her. So the response was that the Archbishop of Canterbury formed the Windsor Committee, which met for, I think, about a year, and at the end of it produced a very large document called the Windsor Report, which essentially said, all right, slow down. Let's actually talk about this as communion. Let's try to work this out so that we don't split. A lot of the more conservative churches saw it as a combination of what we did, and in some ways it's saying you guys really should have talked to us first. But it also says a lot of things about what the more conservative groups are doing now, like crossing provincial boundaries. It made it very, very clear that the churches in Nigeria were not to come over here and start opening churches in the United States, which they have started to do. So the Windsor Report's an interesting animal. It had good intent, but it didn't really do anything. So, yes?
So the corollary is the dioceses are actually bound by strict geographical rules.
Yes.
Okay.
Because the Anglican Communion was set up in an imperialist framework, it exists pretty much everywhere that England had a colony. That when those countries and regions got their independence, they set up their own autonomous church structure, and a deal was made. The deal was made, and it was passed a couple of times at the Lambeth conference that you are not to cross provincial boundaries. Yes.
Could you potentially throw out the Nigerian churches for crossing those boundaries?
There's been debate. Actually, it's looked upon through most of the communion as the way it's looked at is that that we did something that we shouldn't have done. We didn't consult with the rest of the communion before we consecrated Gene Robinson. But the Nigerian churches did something that they absolutely should not have done, which is crossing provincial boundaries. Our fault, our mistake was not talking. Theirs was actually taking action that they were not allowed to take. So, you may have heard something about a schism. This is what you're hearing now. The Congregation of American Churches in America, or CANA, is a group that is led by Martin Minns. He was a priest in Philadelphia. A couple of years ago, Archbishop Vakinola came over against the requests of both the presiding bishop in the United States and the Archbishop of Canterbury. Came over here and consecrated him a bishop of a whole set of Nigerian and Ugandan churches in the United States. They have about 60 churches and are setting themselves up to work with a couple of other groups of their kind to form potentially another Anglican province, which causes problems because there's already one here. Let's see. For the most, a lot of them just keep to themselves. They said, we're splitting with the church. We're not going to bother anyone. We want your buildings, but that's a whole other kettle of fish. I can't really say anything about them that isn't completely and utterly biased.
Keep going.
They consider themselves missionaries to the United States because they feel that we've fallen into, having sin and lost any truth of the Bible. And they're out to get. A lot of them are also out to get the church, the Episcopal Church as a whole. They want their own structures that are less democratically run than ours set in place. Most areas of the communion. We're an Episcopal church, a church run by the Episcopate of the bishops. In the United States and in England, we're very democratically run. We meet. We have essentially congressional meetings, and decisions come out of there. In places like Nigeria, in places like Australia, the way it works generally is the bishop says something, and everyone does it. So they'd like something more along those lines set up here.
Why would they want to come to the U.S. instead of churches? I can see why they want us not to encroach on their structure, but why on earth would they bother to come here?
Because they feel that they're doing what the Bible has called them to do. They see that they feel that we've fallen into sin, that we have completely lost the way, and they're here to make things better.
So it's reversing churches.
Sort of. And it's kind of our fault.
Right,
Because we didn't teach them to.
imperialists.
Well, we didn't teach, when we set up churches, missionary churches in these areas, we did not teach anything other than just strict adherence to text. We didn't teach the theological history. We didn't incorporate any of that into what we were teaching these groups. And then, we might have intended to eventually, but we pulled out and we left them as such.
What do you mean you pulled out? You just sort of started the framework of an on-the-ground church, and then we're like, oh, you guys are sort of fledgling, we'll let you fly now, bye-bye.
More along the lines of, they've got guns instead of saying, British go home.
Oh. There's that too.
Pulling out is always
I really hope it's good video on your camera.
Yeah.
Back to
So
Neil.
responses. There have been a number of responses. The Windsor Report was the first of them. The Archbishop of Canterbury strongly asked us to show some restraint and to at least take some time so the conversation could happen before we did anything else. He wasn't taking any. His positions are fairly clear, although he can't actually articulate them because he has to speak for the communion. He's completely in favor of what we're doing, but he wants us to show restraint for the sake of for the nature of the communion as a whole, for keeping us together. There's also a request made upon the churches, the more conservative branches of the communion, saying, leave them alone. Let's actually talk. Let's not do anything rash. BO 33. Take a moment and read this. This was